up, YouTube? Ryan Panny here. Hope you guys are doing reasonably well. Mid-year lists. I usually spend way too much time on these, and this year's no exception. But I will say that I did do an excellent job this year of just building this list steadily over time, rather than like getting to the end of June and cramming and re-listening to like 50 records that I had kind of heard 3 or 4 times. You know what I mean? These 10 metal records that you're gonna get here are truly representative of my listening over the past 6 months. Honorable mentions, there were a lot. I loved Eluvati. I listened to that record a lot. I always say their name wrong, I'm sorry. I loved Queensryche. That record, The Verdict, got overlooked by a lot of people because people just assume that these old school bands aren't bringing it anymore, and in that case, they're just totally wrong. Sometimes the Eddie Trunk audience has a point. Whitechapel surprised me. Exhumer put out an awesome old school thrash metal record that I highly recommend. There were a lot. Metal is alive and well, guys. And let's not waste any more time beyond that. Without further ado, my top 10 metal records of 2019, halfway through the year. So at number 10, I gotta give some love to one of the true critical darlings of this genre, and they always have been, Baroness with the Golden Grey record. And I gotta imagine at least half my viewers are upset right now that this record is not higher on the list, just given all the acclaim and all the love it's gotten. But to tell the truth, I probably haven't fully digested it yet, because when I made this list, it had been out for like 2 or 3 weeks. But I still enjoy frontman John Baisley's gruff but tuneful vocals, and I do find this track list to be more dense and sprawling and I would say dynamic than 2015's Purple record, although right now I definitely favor Purple. But with that being said, the 6 instrumental cuts on here are some of my favorite moments, along with, of course, the beautiful ballad I'd Do Anything, which I love, the single Tourniquet, the dramatic build of Cold-Blooded Angels, that's a killer tune. And sonically speaking, I will freely admit that my taste is somewhat less partial to Baroness's gritty, fuzzed up approach, but I do think that they're one of the bands that does that purposely unrefined sound a lot of justice. At number 9, a killer modern thrash record with retro ties, of course, the new Death Angel album, Humanicide. Wow, I mean, between this record, and I know I already mentioned Exhumer, my love for thrash metal has totally been reignited. Jason Soykoff's production here really shines. And then you just have a beautifully well-rounded platter of tracks, whether it's the Judas Priest influenced Revelation song, or it's just balls out riff fest like Define Defector and The Pack, or it's that throwback 80s kind of Motorhead on crack feel of a song like I Came for Blood. So yeah, with Humanicide, Death Angel's definitely throwing down the gauntlet in terms of 80s thrash bands making great modern records. And Creator as well, of course. But we'll see if, you know, Metallica, Megadeth, Testament, Anthrax, etc. can live up to something like this on the next round, because this album really sets a high bar. At 8, we have Dream Theater with Distance Over Time, which some would say is a natural, creative swing of the pendulum back from the 2-hour bloated concept album that was 2016's The Astonishing. Distance Over Time, meanwhile, refreshingly, if you're someone like me, circles things back to song-based Dream Theater. And you know, the band still play their asses off, technically speaking, and the songs, especially the longer ones, still take you on that journey that you're used to from Dream Theater, but within the framework of more riff-focused songs like Paralyze and the ultra groovy Room 137, as well as a track like Two Wits End, which just has the most gorgeous ending. Oh my goodness. John Petrucci and co. really brought back the songs. And while Black Clouds and Silver Linings will always hold a special place in my heart, Distance Over Time is a real contender for best 21st century Dream Theater album for me. I'm serious. At number 7 is the self-titled, or I guess untitled, Rammstein album. I can't fucking believe that we almost went a full decade without a Rammstein album. And I'm perhaps even more surprised that in the month and a half, or I guess 2 months since this album came out, it has slowly climbed into not only my top 10, but number 7 on my list. I would not have anticipated that. Rammstein's such a funny band musically because they construct their songs around these riffs and melodic themes that are so basic and so straightforward that if it were another band in another context, you'd probably criticize that band for having simplistic ideas. But Rammstein, they just present them in such a bombastic and unapologetic way that you can't help but thoroughly enjoy them. And yes, sometimes with a small dose of irony, just because of the spectacle of the band. And some examples of what I'm talking about here on this album are songs like Tattoo and Sex and Was ich liebe. But of course, alongside this charming simplicity that I'm talking about, this record also boasts genuine, powerful anthems like the opening track Deutschland, or the crushing third track Zeig dich, or the closer Hallemann, which that one in particular really just reeks of the Mutter era of the band, which obviously is a good thing considering I devoted an entire Central Metal video to that album. So yeah, I found myself, as time goes on, even more so, considerably pushing back on the mixed reception this album has gotten. Loved the Venom Prison record Samsara, giving it the number 6 slot here. So much for a sophomore slump for this socially active British extreme metal group. I'm just enthralled by the dry and cavernous production on this album. It really has a unique sound, and when coupled with the light speed, rhythmic assault and battery of the compositions here, the music on this album just makes you feel like you're on this out of control amusement park ride, except you're completely in the dark and the ride could malfunction at any minute and kill you. But Larissa Stupar is an exceptional vocalist. The band instrumentally carve out a pretty unique space within the extreme metal and death metal landscape. And yeah, the breakdown at the end of Uterine Industrialization, that's gotta be one of the best metal moments of the year. It's like, it's like a jacked up death metal Pantera domination. So yeah, I can't wait to watch this young band's career progress. Our first entry into the top 5 is the new Periphery record, Hail Stan. After literally a decade of holding out here, I finally caved into the Periphery movement. This album is amazing, man. The musicianship is absolutely superior. I mean, look at that crazy guitar solo in the latter half of the 16-minute opener, Reptile, or there's songs like Blood Eagle and Church Burner that showcase just a masterful grasp on complex rhythmic ideas. But of course, and you know, my viewers know this about me by now, I would hope, it's the songs that ultimately won me over. It's the songs. You know, the triumphant melodies of tracks like It's Only Smiles and Crush and Satellites. Periphery have to be the one band that utilize those whiny second wave of metalcore type vocals to the desired melodramatic effect. And it's probably because those vocals are being paired with such stellar musicianship and composition. Number 4, another music nerd type pick here, the self-titled Astronoid record. This band's debut, Air, blew me away in 2016, and this is another instance, like Venom Prison, of a band outdoing themselves the second time around. Sophomore slumps are not a thing in 2019. I love it. This dreamy, ethereal sound of theirs just takes me to pure joy and bliss, like no other metal I've encountered can do. Astronoid's music just makes you feel like you're floating. And I'm not gonna resort to these cheap allusions to major key black metal or insert irrelevant prog band here to try and describe their sound like so many other writers and listeners have tried to do. Instead, I'm just gonna tell you to please listen. Just please support this band. It makes me so happy to think that I might be turning one viewer onto this Astronoid record. This band deserves all the acclaim in the world, all the support in the world, and I'm so happy the record was actually this good so I could genuinely talk about them like this. It's gonna be one of the best underground metal releases of the year. I understand that it's a specific sound that might not be for all of my viewers, but I know I'm gonna convert one of you. I know I'm gonna. Listen to this. At number 3, an outstanding triumph of American technical death metal, Allegiant with Apoptosis. Now, Allegiant I wasn't necessarily into before, but have just absolutely floored me with their extremely rare combination of noodly tech metal polish, but extremely catchy riff writing. It's funny, when I first heard this record, it immediately drew comparisons to me of the very best of the Scar Symmetry catalog. And when I tweeted that out at them, the band tweeted back at me, they said, Per Nilsson is God, the Scar Symmetry guitarist. We can only imitate the awesomeness, which was very funny and very humble of them, considering on this record they're doing a lot more than that. They're doing a lot more than imitating Scar Symmetry. They're crafting these incredibly multifaceted compositions with, again, a very rare even split of attention between playing their asses off and just writing badass death metal songs. I remember when the Faceless Planetary Duality came out, and it felt like after that there was this explosion of ridiculous, over-the-top technical death metal bands. There are several bands in that mold that I enjoy, but there has not been a record in over 10 years that has been this good at combining the technical wizardry with actual songs. Number 2, and I hate that number 1 exists because this album definitely deserves high honors of some kind, Numnorium with their sophomore album Adore. Unbelievably talented Canadian black metal band. And kind of like what I said about Astronoid, I do think that music writers slapping the post-metal or post-black metal label on this band and constantly comparing them to an act like Deaf Heaven sort of cheapens the powerful impact of this record, because while there are highlights on here like the song Horizon, which I love, that with its beautiful acoustic come down definitely earns comparisons to Deaf Heaven or to Agalloch probably more appropriately. This album overall is way more aggressive and way more riff-centric than either of those bands that I just mentioned. I mean, just listen to Coma or the title track or Regret, and what you'll hear here is an astonishing blend of suffocating black metal intensity with a light dose, ever so light dose of death metal influence, and particularly melodic death metal influence guitar riffs, coated in a very clean mix, and then complemented by this just unwavering, relentless pursuit and devotion to radiant melody. And radiant melody applied not just in the alt-rock or shoegaze sense, as those previous genre labels might have suggested, but much more broadly. This album is a listen with remarkable emotional potency. anger, despondency, melancholy, and an occasional bright happiness to it. And that powerful mix of emotions is only arrived at through the unique stylistic blend that I just described. Truly incredible record. And number one, there really was no contest for this. There usually is. There usually is quite a contest for the number one spot, but no one was topping the new Soilwork record. No one. And you know, I gotta admit, I had a bit of a blind spot for this. Because here's the thing, Soilwork have been one of my favorite bands since middle school. And I've gotten so used to the band meeting and often exceeding my expectations album after album after album that this general excellence kind of became the status quo. I noticed this especially when The Ride Majestic came out, their last record. And I guess I had never really considered or thought of the possibility that there was another level to it, you know? But they shattered that I guess, complacent fandom with this record, which is likely the best of their career. Yes, including Predator's Portrait. Yes, including Living Infinite. Insert whatever album you want to insert into that statement. This album is fucking perfect. I wouldn't change a single note, and I never feel that way. And I'm still kind of at a loss for words. Just the fact that like the 80s glam metal influence riffs on Full Moon Shoals and the blast beats of songs like Arrival and When the Universe Spoke and the quasi like dance rhythms of the song You a Quiver, which closes the record, and By the Way, someone's got to make an EDM remix of that song like ASAP. The fact that all these elements can not only coexist on a record, but for it to sound completely cohesive, I still don't understand how Soilwork did that. I don't understand. They just blew this style of music wide open. All I have to say is thank you, Soilwork. Thank you. I hesitate to say melodic death metal because there are so many disparate influences that contributed to this album sounding the way that it did. So all I'm just gonna say is masterpiece. And we'll leave it at that. And yeah, what a fucking great year for metal it's been. Wow. Of course, I left a lot of albums out, so be sure to leave a comment below with your top 10. And yeah, this video's broader non-metal companion is coming next, so stay tuned for that. And as always, thanks so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video and are not yet subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so by clicking right over here, as well as checking out any of the other rock or metal related content that I publish here on a weekly basis. Really appreciate you watching, liking, disliking, commenting, engaging in any way. Twitter, Instagram handle @RyanPandaMusic. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys soon.